Hey, yo, it's David Gregory.
And Nikki Llewellyn Gregory, and you're listening to Addicted to Betterment. It's a podcast for high achievers wired for sharpening themselves or those looking for a regular system to develop and level up their life. We've only got one shot at this life. Don't waste any opportunity to live alive and love your life. Let's do this together. Click on the follow button to make sure you get all of our episodes as they drop. We can do anything. We really can do anything. Think no limits. You can do anything, so can I. David and I are here today to talk right now about thinking bigger, to live bigger, to live the most fulfilling life that you possibly can. And I was just thinking about a story as we were preparing for this morning, and I texted one of my friends to reflect on the story. One of my friends and I went on a trip to Mexico. You know, like the first day that you go on a trip, I don't know if you're like this, but I always feel like the first day feels the longest because you're getting the lay of the land. You want to go check everything out. You're like doing everything you possibly can to get a full understanding of what all is there. And you're just not tired. You're just full of energy. And so that was this day for me. And I remember she and I went out on the beach and we were out there for what seems like hours. You know, we hadn't even thought about dinner. It was dark. The sun had gone down during this conversation. And it was just so energetic and life giving. And what we did was we sat out there, and I don't even know if it was intentional. I think it was just an organic conversation around how do we live the life we want? How can we design our ideal life? We talked about many things on the beach that day, but the one that I know both of us remember so well and celebrate together is we both agreed that we were going to have jobs that allowed us to work from anywhere at any time. We want to work from a laptop anywhere we want. And just thinking back, it feels not so long ago, but it was well before, the pandemic shut down the world and many people were forced to do this differently. We got on this path to say, what if? What if? What would it look like? We started to take those steps and, fast forward for many years, well before the pandemic, we were both positioned to be able to work that way because it was the life that we were designing for ourselves. We didn't want limits. We didn't want drive time. We didn't want overhead for our workplaces with huge bills for the real estate that we needed for brick and mortar spaces. And I reflect on what was it that allowed me to think bigger. I got outside of my normal space. We went to the beach. For me, ocean, water, nice weather helps me think more clearly. I was with one of my biggest thinking friends, and I allowed my mind to have no limits, and we just dreamed. And so many times, like I said, we've celebrated that conversation and then the accountability that we've had to stay true to, like, what are we doing? What are those next steps? And for years, we have been working this way, and it's just provided a much more fulfilling life for our, the work portion of our bucket. So David, I know we chose this topic for a reason today because a couple things have come up for us that we're like, we just need to think bigger. Like that's what we need to do. We need to force ourselves to think bigger. Tell us a little bit more about your take on this.
So, you and I were recently in California and we went to one of our favorite places, Newport Beach, California. If you haven't been to Newport Beach, California, do yourself a favor. Go there. It's spectacular. It's beautiful. But we were in Newport Beach, and as we were driving down the road, you made a comment that stuck with me, and it propelled several conversations following that, which is one of the reasons why we chose to do this topic. We're both pretty fired up about this right now. But you made the comment as we were driving down the road. You said, "Oh man, being here makes me think bigger." And I asked the question, tell me more. What do you mean by that? Explain what you mean by think bigger. And you went on to elaborate on in business, in life, in our circumstances. It challenges you to think bigger. And so I know we both had examples in our life that challenge us, people in our life that challenge us to think bigger. It's so cliche. You see it in advertisements, you see it, on billboards, think bigger. But the reality is we do limit ourselves in how we think often. And so I think the components that I'd love to dive into today that make up thinking bigger. Let's talk about our mind. I feel like that's a big component. Our environment, the environment that we are in, and then the people in our lives. What do you think about that, Nikki? What if we dive into those three things today?
I think that sounds great. And I also just have to say that, as we were in California at an amazing gym, we love Lifetime Gym. So we go there in our community in Indianapolis, and then we love to go check out other Lifetimes in other communities. So as I was on the treadmill, I started to Google or Zillow real estate. And I would say the most fixer upper oriented home was about $3 million. So, and David and I see my vision board over here, which really ties into thinking bigger. I'm like, this is going to force me to think bigger because if I want to live in something that is, a conducive home for us, if the cheapest one around here that is a major fixer upper is $3 million, I think we're going to have to start expanding our thought processes and possibilities. So, but I do agree with you, David, how we think, what we are feeding our mind, how our thought processes are going, our environment and how we set ourselves up for success in that environment to inspire us and help us be clear. And then the people that we're around that amplify our opportunities and back and forth, that we're able to really help each other go to new heights and do bigger things. I really think that's it. So let's dive right into mind.
Before we start talking about the mind and how we challenge ourselves to think bigger, I'd like to pause for a second. And if you're listening to this today, think of an area in your life that you need to think bigger. So, Nikki, you just shared the story about when we were in California. And as you were just talking, just sharing this, it challenged me in ways to think bigger. And our goal for this episode today is that you and I challenge each other, and anyone who's listening to this, that you find an area in your life that you determine and you have a clear plan for thinking bigger for that area in your life. So pause for a second, think, what is an area in your life that you need to think bigger? So with that, the mind and what you are pouring into your mind makes up such a big component of whether you're thinking big, whether you're thinking small. Nikki, tell me some ways that this shows up and preventing us from thinking big and some things we can do, maybe some tricks and hacks that you have to pour into your mind and what you're pouring into your mind to help us think bigger.
Yeah. So, law of attraction is very real. And the way we think attracts what we see and what's around us. And so, you go through phases of life that attract things based on where you're stuck in your head. And if we rewind, and I love to think about a staircase, and the first step on the staircase, it's not we're going from here to the top immediately, it's steps. We take steps. And with the mind, the very first step is around rewiring. We all have childhood beliefs or communities we were involved in, call it our church or, our parents, talk track in our head. And we believe things because of how we were brought up or how our environment or people around us shaped us. And so the first step is to think about, why do I think this way about this? What are the limiting beliefs that I have in my mind that I need to cancel? And so there are beliefs around I can't. And we're going to talk today about affirmations and how important that is. But the first is to be very aware of some of the inner wiring that might need to get reworked. And the best way that I've ever learned to overcome that, aside from environment and people, is like I feed my mind what I read, what I listen to, proactively picking up books to help myself advance. And David put out that challenge like, what is that one area? So call it financial. There's a book that in my financial life, we use these cards to reiterate what this book has taught me over my life. David and I do this, but it's Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. And Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, that book is really about the hard wiring that we might have about money. Like money is the root of all evil. Money is about selfishness, right? And we have to go to the core and really understand like what are those things that we have to rewire.
I believe strongly that in order to change your reality, you have to change your mentality. So, in order to change the reality that you're currently living in or that you're currently experiencing, you have to change the way you see it mentally. So, how do I do that? Well, For me, I know we talk a lot about morning routine. I believe strongly that you have to work on your mind as much as you work on anything, because if you get your mind right, or if you see things properly in the right perspective, it really affects every area of your life. So morning routine for me, affirmations. What you feed your mind is what you're going to get out of life. It's that simple. If you pour into your mind positive goals and challenge yourself to see things bigger, or to be abundance minded versus scarcity minded, and that takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to overcome those neural pathways that we already have in our mind. One of my favorite books around this topic is Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Rochelle, an absolutely powerful read that talks about how to change the way you think about things and to think bigger, and to eliminate some of the negative thoughts that we have and the limiting beliefs that we have in our head. But in order to change the reality, you have to change your mentality. So, in order to start thinking big about that area of your life that you already identified as an area that, man, I've got to stretch myself, I've got to think bigger, I've got to do more, achieve more, or experience more, live a more fulfilling life, you have to start with the way you think about it. And books, affirmations, podcasts, which by the way, Addicted to Betterment is a great way to do that. A shameless plug for Addicted to Betterment. You're already listening, so thank you so much. Any additions to that, Nikki?
Yeah, no, I think it's a hybrid between a growth mindset and an abundance mindset. Growth mindset is what am I proactively pursuing that helps me consume content to develop myself in certain areas, or just your whole life to be focused, like David said, on what is this one area that you're working on right now to think bigger. What types of things are you feeding your mind to help you do that? Reading books, listening to podcasts, going to events and learning from other people. And then I think the other side of it is this abundance mindset. We always talk about two sides of the coin. It's like developing ourselves and growing in ourselves, but also what am I doing to develop and grow others? And so it's just that's the core of who we are and what we believe. You have to be doing both. It's never I'm doing this just for me. It is so much of what we're pouring into ourselves to be able to make the greatest impact we can make on the world, which is to pour in and help other people. But the abundance that we work on with our mind, which is around gratitude for what we have, believing that there are really no limits, and what that turns into when we're around other people and supporting them and what we want and other people for us is celebrating their success and uplifting their dreams. We've all experienced like the naysayers and the dream squashers, and an abundance mind not only builds us but helps to build other people. I think that's so important. And then, getting a little bit more tactical here, I guess, is in our mind, we must have vision for our life, right? We have to know clearly for our life what is our vision, and that iterates and changes over time, and break that down into goals. What steps am I going to take to accomplish this vision, and writing those down and revisiting those regularly, and then the affirmations that we have in order to get there. So having a clear vision, breaking down those goals, and then regularly affirming. And I know this goes right into David's passion for morning routine time. David, you want to take that for a minute?
Yeah, I'm thinking about how we vision our lives. So I'm thinking about when you and I met. I'll share my own personal side of this. I would had went through a divorce, was in just a challenging time in life, and at that season, the one thing that I knew that I wanted was a great relationship, and I challenged myself to think bigger about who I was, the life that I was living, the relationship that I wanted to experience. And what I did is I wrote those down. I wrote all of that down to visit it, and I would look at it. And then every time I was in a potential relationship, I would look at those things and did they measure up to that thinking big? So often we settle for mediocrity in areas of our life, whether it's our fitness, our career, our parenting, our relationship, all the areas, and we settle for our life. Oh, it is what it is. And we accept mediocrity because it's just, oh, this is who I am, or this is the hand that I've been dealt, or the circumstances that I'm in. We don't have to do that. We can think bigger. Most people are living a life of quiet desperation and not allowing themselves as they did when they were a teen or a child. I mean, remember back, Nikki, when we were kids and we would think big and we dreamed of, whether it's being an astronaut or being president of the United States, which, by the way, no one thinks like that anymore. No one wants to be president of the United States anymore. It's like the worst job in the world. But that said, we don't often, as adults, we forget to allow ourselves to think big. And so for me, when I was in that season and I wrote those things down, man, it allowed me to pursue those things, even though it was big and it seemed like, am I ever going to find someone who checks all these boxes? Well, guess what I did? Let's throw a big party right now. Yay, I did. So congratulations to me. But that being said, I challenged myself to think big and to go after it.
Well, and congratulations to me too. I am just so honored and fulfilled to be able to spend time talking about one of the things I love the most throughout all of these episodes with my husband. David, when you and I met, and for a solid year, if not more, I remember you talking about a whole new life, a whole new life. You had a journal that you would use for your morning routine, and you'd carry around a whole new life, and you'd journal things and you'd write it out and you'd talk about stories and you'd talk about action steps. And that was your mantra for quite a while, even well past when we met. How do we create a whole new life? And I mean, for you,
Mm-hmm.
changed your career. You
Mm-hmm.
got, well, now remarried, but you were in a new relationship completely different.
Mm-hmm.
You moved from a community that you'd lived in for a very long time to a
Mm-hmm.
new one. Like, you created a whole new life, but that was by design. And so my question that I was just thinking for all of us is, when was the last time you spent time dreaming? Dedicated time to dream.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about the life wheel. It's such a great tool to help us stay focused and to get clear on where we want to go and where's the gap and just what are we going to do today to take those steps. But even bigger, the life wheel is each component of your life, all of the areas. What is the dream state for
Mm-hmm.
being a wife? Dream state. What do I want to be? How do I define that? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? What do we want to have? What do we want to give? And looking at that in your career. Again, dream scenario. What do I want to
Mm-hmm.
be? What do I want to do? What do I want to have from my career or in my career? And what do I want to give? And just dedicated time to dream, I think, is really key. And then we talked about morning routine time or whatever that routine is. The point is routine. How often are you revisiting your dreams? How often
Mm-hmm.
are you revisiting your vision, your goals? You look at the statistics that say for people who write down their goals, the difference in achieving goals when written down is an exorbitant difference, right? And we have to build ourselves every day to keep that going because we're going to get knocked off track. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to have days where we mess it up, or we're going to have people that cut us down or experiences. And when you can stay true to, like, here is the mission that I'm on and I see it so clearly. I've dreamed, I have my vision, I have my goals, and I affirm myself and believe I can. I mean, I really think that's a recipe for success.
Man, what I heard you just say, take time to think. Carve out time. Carve out quiet time, quiet the noise. We live such a fast-paced life. I feel like you and I, we live such a fast-paced life, and I know everyone feels the same. You feel like, if I could have 28 hours in a day versus 24, I could actually get everything done and achieve everything. It still wouldn't be enough. If I had 32 hours in a day, it still wouldn't be enough. But carve out time. Carve out time. It doesn't have to be every day, but carve out time to think and then challenge yourself to think bigger and to dream. Carve out
Mhm.
time. It takes time. You have to be intentional about it. And when you were just talking about that, if people could understand that, how important it is to just take time, carve out time, be intentional about it, to think and to dream. Man, I love that.
So we've spent a lot of time talking about the mind, and by design, the mind trumps everything else. We're about to talk about environment and people, and those are big bucket items, but your mind trumps it all. And so I'm glad that we really went deeper there about rewiring and growth and abundance in the way we think and vision and taking time to dream. There's so much to that. We could have a whole series on it, but your mind is your most powerful resource. And I just want to say right now, I am grateful for the mind that I have. There's so many people that have things that affect their mind. And for us to constantly keep that mind sharp and healthy, it's our standout to be able to make everything else work. And going into environment, Our environment is a huge component to our success. Let's talk about it on two sides for a second. I'll tee this up, David, and then you take it. One side is when we travel can be one of our greatest mind expanders. It can help us to just get out of the norm and to just get those limits away, get outside the box. Travel teaches us so much and it helps us to immediately think bigger. The other side is from an environment standpoint, if you're in a cluttered, dirty space, it is going to hinder your ability, most people, it's going to hinder the ability for you to be clear and for you to stay on focus because you have so much clutter in the environment or space around you. Environment's so important.
For me, let's just look at work. If I'm trying to achieve the goals that I set for myself in business, and I work super hard to be a top performer, to be a top producer. And so what's critical to me is the environment that I surround myself in. Does it challenge me? Does it enable me? Does it facilitate me achieving my goals, or does it hold me back? So, for example, if I go to the office some days, I try to avoid the office. I do my best, and I sometimes get a little shade for that. Why are you not in the office more? You know what? Because a lot of times I walk in the office and it changes my mindset. And next thing you know, I'm distracted from the goals and the things I'm trying to accomplish versus inspired and challenged. Maybe I leave frustrated. Maybe I leave a little deflated or defeated, distracted from the goals and maybe less engaged as I did when I walked in. And so for me, putting people around me and things around me that inspire me in my work to achieve those goals, the habits, the systems in place. If it's parenting, trying to set myself up, being intentional about putting myself in a place to think bigger as a parent, to think bigger about how I can accomplish the goals with my kids and engage in that relationship and pour into them bigger. But for me, the environment that I surround myself in so that it enables me to pursue goals, think big, and do that without losing my energy. So I feel like your environment either inspires you or it drains you. It either elevates you and facilitates you being better. Your relationship at home, how you set that up. Are you intentional about engaging? If you're a man, you got to lead that conversation to think bigger. You got to show up. Are you setting yourself up for success in those relationships? Your environment, as you say, Nikki, is so critical. And I think even to how you were just talking about lifetime. So we're on vacation. We put ourselves in an environment to achieve our fitness goals. We set ourselves up to go to a good gym so that we know that our environment can either facilitate us falling off the rails in our physical fitness goals or facilitate us to achieve better or to go harder, to achieve more, to be better in that area. So environment is so critical. And as I think about this, it makes me want to ask myself the question, if I think of that area that I thought of at the beginning of this episode, what's an area that I need to do better or think bigger? Am I setting myself up for success in my environment?
I'm about to go off on a soapbox, but I'll keep it limited. So I love employee engagement, work related thought leadership. So anything that can support a person to be able to thrive in the work that they do, I love it. I love to learn of that. I love to inspire leaders to help people with the majority of the hours they spend in their life to be their best and to thrive in those spaces. And, I think that sometimes we take whether we're a leader or not, just put whatever hat on you got here. We take this tunnel vision but this is how it should be. So David was talking about going to the office. And so that doesn't help him or propel him or give him the platform. Let's say that doesn't give him the platform to be able to be his very best and most productive. Whereas for some people, it does. So to have a complete remote work environment for some people that need more structure in a place away from home, we as leaders have to have options where it's like, we're going to find local co-working spaces or we're going to give you a stipend. So if that's the way you want to go, even though our company's remote, help them be in the environment that allows for them to do their best work. David and I, as we said, we were just in California, and our first work day, because it was like a work play trip, our first work day, we went down the street to a pretty good sized Starbucks, and we were both in different spaces, so we weren't distracting each other. And for me, my worst work experiences with all this distraction, all these people around. I was so distracted. I was on a call and laughing, and this person's like, "Why are you laughing?" Because there's this bird that got into Starbucks, and I felt like I was on candid camera. I was watching people like they're like hovering over in the corner with their coffee. They didn't know what to do because the bird was chasing them around inside the Starbucks. And then, three of the Starbucks workers come out and they're like with brooms and all this trying to get this bird out the door. And I am just so freaking distracted to the point where there was two people that I was talking with during that time that later sent me an email checking in on the bird because I was just like, I can't
Oh
even
my.
function right now. So there's this, and then this lady, she comes in. She's on the phone walking around in her bra. Like, yes, it was like a sports bra, but it was just so distracting. She's talking, walking around in circles, like ranting on the phone. And I'm like, I cannot, like, let alone just so much going on, so many windows and people. David, on the other hand, that's like his best work environment. He's sitting in Starbucks, and I'm like, dude, did you see that bird? He's like, what bird? I'm like, "You didn't see the bird? This was a huge
No
scenario
idea.
happening inside the Starbucks," or the lady walking around with her bra, and he was like, "No, but I wish I would've." It's so interesting where for our different environment that helps us to thrive, there was a time in my life where I had an office that was an internal office in a building, and we painted that thing bright yellow. We had this big whiteboard, and I would go in as many mornings as I could early, light a candle, turn on my instrumental study music and my whiteboard, my computer, no distractions. I don't like windows. I don't, even though my
Oh
office does
man.
have windows, but I like to be laser focused. And around me, I see sticky notes on the wall that have listed my goals and what I'm focused on. It's like I see my pipeline and who I'm working on. I see my focus. I see my dream board and my vision board. I need that kind of a situation. Whereas other people need different environments.
Like me.
Think about when you dream, when you spend time to dream, where do you dream best? Near water, in the wilderness, next to your fireplace in your house? No one size fits all, and to be curious about other people's needs for that, A, to support them, not like, "We need to do it this way." No, we don't. I love to challenge that we need to do it this way. There is no we need or we should. It is what works for that person. And on the other side, you have to advocate for yourself and to put yourself in the right environment for you to thrive.
Yeah, so that Starbucks experience that you talked about, that was like one of my best work days ever. And Nikki, let me just go on record to say if you put me in a room with no windows and no doors, I'm not going to accomplish anything because it's going to drive me crazy. So I love how you positioned that what works for some people won't work for others. The Starbucks situation, you came up to me and you're like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the bird?" I have no idea. I'm so locked in. The noise, the people, it just gets me in this work zone and I had no idea.
Well, so just to put a button on environment, we have to be and put ourselves into environments that uplift us. And you're probably familiar with your circadian rhythm. If you're not, you need to go look it up and make sure you understand those times of day that for you as a human, it's your best time to think, your best energizing time to work or work out or whatever that is. You need to know that and lean into that. Just like with environment, and I just said need to. Okay, on that one, you need to. We really should know like the times and the places and the people that are best for you and lean into those things. And in environment, having uplifting words, having goals on the wall, things around you that help build you, whatever those are, your environment is so important. And now moving into people, David, I know you've mentioned a couple of things that have teased this out, but the power of the people in our lives to build us and allow us to think bigger in bigger ways, right? It's not just like a person and their ability to help us think bigger, but the opportunity for their energy and their support to help build us or tear us down. Talk a little bit about the people in our lives.
Well, we recently did an episode on the power of the people in your life. I believe the title of it was Enhance Your Circle, Elevate Your Life. If you get a chance, go back, listen to that one. But it talks a lot about the people in your life. But you started out this episode, Nikki, sharing about the story you and our dear friend Allison sitting on the beach in this conversation where you're challenging each other to think bigger and to dream this life where you can work remote. So I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. Imagine if our friend Allison was a small thinker. And imagine if you had sat there and said, man, one of these days I'm going to work remote and I'm going to have where I can work from a laptop and I can work anywhere in the world. And what if she had said, that's dumb? Now that's a terrible idea. Here's why, put you down and tried to minimize you thinking big like that. The power of sitting there dreaming with someone and committing to that, and then back and forth once in a while checking in on that. Hey, we're still working on that. How you doing? And now here you are 12 years later being able to do exactly that. But I believe that script could have been very different if that person you had been sitting with on the beach was a small thinker and challenged you to not think that big and pushed back on your goals and tried to be small in their thinking or beliefs.
I am very dedicated to protecting my time. I know you had shared that on a recent episode around the people we surround ourselves with and how protective you are of that. Lord have mercy if I would go on vacation with someone that was a dream squasher. That's on me, right? Like, so vacation, it's a lot of time and energy to go on vacation. And for God's sake, I'm not going to be sitting on a beach with somebody that's a dream squasher. So design those right relationships to be around you in your best spaces to make sure you are aligning with the people that are going to build you in those. I think, there are people in your lives, maybe certain family members or longtime friends that you still want in your life, but you don't maybe spend an exorbitant amount of time with them. And you put some guardrails on that, right? So the guardrails would not be go on a vacation with them. It's like you go on a lunch or you have a phone conversation, but really being proactive with how you spend your time and who with, and the larger buckets of your time definitely need to be with the people that build and not tear down.
Yeah, as you grow in life, as you elevate new levels, they always present new devils. I heard that quote. I loved it. Are your friends by default, or are they friends that you're choosing? Are the people that are speaking into your life that are supporting, or as you said, dream squashing or dream encouraging? Have you chosen those people, or are you just the same friends? Joe, he's been my friend for 15 years. And so I share with him all my dreams and goals. Is he trying to be rich? Is he trying to be the best version of himself? Is he trying to experience the most out of life? If not, then maybe that's not who you should be spending your time with and sharing your dreams with. Find someone that is pursuing that best life. If Susie or Joe, and sorry if you're Joe or Susie and you're listening to this, but there's two sides of this. And I know, Nikki, how passionate you are about this. But one, are you cheering and supporting on other people's dreams and goals? Are you challenging them? Are you encouraging your friends to think bigger? Or are you squashing their dreams? Please don't squash their dreams. And then the other side is, are you choosing to spend time with people who encourage you, challenge you, support you? Yeah, you got to have those friends that push back and say, man, is this really smart? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this aspect? Absolutely. You got to have those reality checks and friends that are truthful and real enough with you to push back on ideas when they're really dumb. I'm grateful that I have a lot of people like that in my life, because sometimes I get these goals and dreams and then it's like, did you think about this? Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't. Thank you. That's not such a great idea. But have people in your life that aren't just your friends or family by default, but you're choosing who you're sharing and who you're collaborating with on your dreams.
We can do anything. There really are no limits. Really, there aren't. So, are you dreaming and are you dedicated to taking action to achieve those dreams? Just remember what you're feeding your mind is so important, and the space that you're surrounding yourself in and the people that you're around. I mean, recipe for success.
You're right. We really can do anything. We work really hard every other week to bring you great content that really helps you get better in life. While we're grateful that you listen, our goal is much, much bigger than that. We want you to join us in taking action. So, here are 3 action steps to wrap us up that can help us dream bigger with no limits. So, here we go. Number 1, work on your mindset. In order to change your reality, you must first change your mentality. Choose one habit or action you're going to implement today to expand your mindset. Number 2, ask yourself, are you setting yourself up for success in the environment that you're in? If you're not, change it. Number 3, lastly, maybe most importantly, take a look at the people you're dreaming with. Are they dream inspirers or are they dream squashers? No one wants to be around a dream squasher. So pick one person today that inspires you to think big. No, inspires you to think bigger, and get them on your calendar. Do it. So, you just listened to this episode. Now, join us in being addicted to betterment. Subscribe to the show, share with your friends, tag us, and please take a moment, leave a review. Yeah, we do want your stars, but we really want the feedback.